Why do this project now? This project was really important because it was done during the height of the pandemic. And our students and our teachers and everyone were going through a lot of anxiety and a lot of not knowing what was going to happen. And so we had a mural, an art therapy mural group that we started at MiraCosta College. And so when we went online, we had our art therapy group, and then we had this mural group. So we were challenged in what do we do? How do we create something? Because creating a mural or an outcome was a representation of hope. And it was this tangible thing that could hold all of our angst and our anxiety and all the grief that was happening. So when we got together on Zoom, everyone was very isolated in their homes. And what we decided to do as a group was to create a mural, but to do it in puzzle pieces. And so we had the opportunity to have some money. And so what we did is we created kits, and we got together to talk about what do we want to represent to people, and what about us in this moment in time that was really difficult did we want to leave with people. And so originally the idea started as a Catrina, right, with a skeleton face, and that was a little bit too much. And so it changed into a danzante, a dancer. And so we got together, and within that experience, there was a lot of angst because it was happening. And then we created this piece that was made out of little pieces that then got together as a whole community. And so the whole piece started off as individual, and then became a symbol of us coming together, and it became a symbol of the other side of COVID. So I mean, it was my pleasure and my honor to work with our students. We were going through so much during that time, and so to have people that were so committed to such a long process, because to create a mural and to do all the detail just took so much love and soul and attention. There was a big learning curve. I think, we got online, and because we're not in person, it was a lot of anxiety in regards to how am I an artist? How can I possibly do mural? And it was a little overwhelming. And so part of the process was, how do we make this impossible thing seem possible? Which is very reflective, I think, of the undocumented experience, right? How do we support, how do we get through something that has so many obstacles? And so in doing the sketch and projecting it and then cutting up the pieces, there was a lot of the unknown, because I didn't know if this was going to work. And so everyone was just really concerned about it, and then got into the flow. We gave them, I gave them carbon paper, we talked about design, we looked at other murals, students brought in their ideas, and they all helped each other throughout this process. And so it was really cool to see this little community coming together of individual people. And then as we started to get along and to work, then we started to really see these really important personal symbols of people's culture. And it changed from this Mexican dancer to really kind of reflect the cultures of the people that were involved, Colombian and South Africa, Mexico, but then also this indigenous or this native piece as well.
My piece, it's got a lot of indigenous symbolism, Mexica or Aztec, and I chose, even though I'm Wirarica, I chose those symbols because as a person of Mexican descent, a lot of Mexicans were robbed of their indigenous identity with the invasion, and a lot of people relate or connect to the Mexica culture because it's kind of like an umbrella. As part of this mural group, it just opened so many opportunities for me, and I want to say that Dr. Berenice Vadillo was just amazing.
you look around and there's still very few images on our campus that really mirror its community, its surrounding community. The campus is beautiful aesthetically. It's a beautiful campus, but we look around what's happening with our nation and immigration and my people in cages and no path to citizenship, and yet the same continues, and we see that in institutions. I love Miracosta. I'm so proud to be a Miracosta, and I'm blessed to have this opportunity that broke us out of poverty. But the systems continue. When I saw this image, I thought, okay, change is coming. Because not only did it represent, our gente, but it had the images of, having to cross the mountains, like that little picture up there. That's how I arrived. It has the butterfly, the monarch for immigration. It has the tierra, the harvesting of the fruits that many eat and forget that it's because of our hands, the hands of our people.
I feel that this came at a time where students have really been yearning for that representation. I've heard a lot in terms of the history of the college and how there used to be murals on walls and some of the buildings and how those were taken down. And I feel that this is a first step in kind of celebrating culture in a way that is explicit, and it's there and it's visible. And I think a lot from what I've heard from students is, when they go to certain programs or workshops, they feel seen and validated by the presenters or the topics that are being presented. And so I think that putting this mural in the Student Center is that affirmation of that validation that is on the wall, right? And I think that is something that they can see when they walk into the Student Center or go to the cafeteria, or, that's a very highly populated place where, I think a lot of students go by.
It's important to acknowledge that our current political and cultural landscape is hostile. It's hostile, and it's creating more traumas for particularly our historically minoritized communities, more specifically in these, borderlands, Chicanos and Latinos who, experience racism on the daily, and whether it's, overt or microaggressive. And so I think why now? Well, because we need a lot of healing. We need the representation and seeing ourselves in the validation is about healing. And when it happens on an educational space, such as a college, or somewhere where students are here to be, guided and facilitate, a learning experience, what they see around them is also part of their learning, and academic, environment and journey. So if they're not seeing themselves, validated and represented in ways that are empowering, and recognizing of their historical legacies, then there is an erasure that happens. There is an erasure, and we can say that is further traumatic, but it's rooted in racist institutional practices.
Just really taking a moment to just look at the mural, appreciate the power that it has and the power that it gave to our students. I think that the idea, the process, and the result were all so intentional and all had so much meaning for our students. I think it was a power through storytelling that doesn't directly have any to it, but art. And I think that was transmitted. And from what I've heard from a lot of folks and what I personally felt through the art, I think it did what our students were able to put into it, if that makes sense. But I think, again, it's that power through storytelling without having to say any words. We're lucky to have Berenice to build that space, and for people to take all those necessary to build that space. I think a lot of power comes down to our students. to create that place, create that mural, and give us what we now have in our Miracosta campus.
And so I think that if we all can work on our relationships with each other and validating and art therapy furthering, looking at things that we, or beliefs that we need or we don't need, then we can create a community that can heal and a society that is full of empathy and compassion. And I think that that in itself is activism, and that could change a lot of things in our world, and especially I think with how we support and look at our dreamers and our students in general.